This is the Arsenal Vision post-match podcast. My name is Elliot Smith. You can block me on Twitter at Yankee Gunner. So yeah, that was basically the theme of the weekend, just tequila. I have to admit, I didn't drink much tequila this weekend in honor of that song, and now I kind of regret that. But there's still time, actually, recording this on Sunday, so maybe it'll be Margarita Sunday for me. But yeah, we're calling this Tequila and Title Dreams because not only did Arsenal do the business, but Manchester City did not do the business. And so we end match week 3 where we don't end it. There's another game tomorrow that could bring more hilarity and schadenfreude. No one can catch Arsenal at the top of the table. Chelsea get manhandled by Leeds. America, coming in, shit my fucking day. If that's the Jesse Marsh thing anyway. And Aronson, right? He had a goal. The no-look goal from a third of a yard out, but it's still a no-look goal. So yeah, the football continues to be nothing but good. So what we're going to do today, section 1 will be with Tim, so we can really get a feel for the away day atmosphere and what it was like on a very, very fun day in Bournemouth. We'll laugh a little at Chelsea, City, and the rest of the league. And then Paul and Clive will come on, do the heavy lifting, deep dive into the tactical brilliance of Arteta's Arsenal against Bournemouth and the performances that were relevant. And William Saliba apparently just being great at both ends of the pitch, which is fantastic news. I don't know if you saw Zinchenko's reaction. We'll talk to Tim about that in a moment. And then at the very, 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 very end, just for a couple of minutes, we'll hear from Mike from the Gooners Pod. They've got a live event coming up in London. I don't want you to miss that. So that's it. Tim's on Twitter. Roberto. Hello, Tim.
Hello there.
It's funny, before the season kicks off, you're doing regular pods, you're doing Patreon pods, and you get in a nice rhythm. And then the season kicks off, and there's so much happening, and you're like, do I need to do a pod for that? Like Chelsea lost. I'm like, do we need to do a pod for Chelsea losing? And then City don't. Do I need to? There's just all the football's happening all the time. But I think the moment that will stand out for most Arsenal fans this weekend is the Saliba song. And you were at Bournemouth, and I was hoping you could just give us a little background, not just on what it was like to be in the crowd for that, because you sent a video and it looked amazing, but also how that came about and just how it felt to have that going on all match long.
Yeah. It's weird. Usually when a chant goes up, I've kind of heard it before somewhere, be it in a pub or a concourse, and it takes a little time to kick off. But maybe that's the case in this scenario, and that happened in pubs and concourses that I haven't been in. But this one really felt, it felt off the cuff. I'm sure whoever kind of made it up or was the first to go with it has been thinking of it probably for the last 3 years, thinking, God, I hope he plays for us. Otherwise, this one's going to waste. But it did feel because in the first couple of games there was like a much more generic chant for Saliba to the tune of Seven Nation Army, which is much less imaginative, and it's a holding chant, really, not a Rob Holding chant, but like a holding chant. Yeah. It's like, until we think of something a bit better, we want to show that we appreciate you. But this one, it kind of started, I think it had its genesis, there was just a piece of defending where Bournemouth went over, one of the few times they're actually able to go over the top, and he swept it all up and everything, and his name was chanted. But then it just kind of started in the background, and I was in the very front row on this occasion. So the way these things usually goes, they kind of start at the back and tumble forwards. But it was one of those things where the second because obviously it takes quite a long time to get to the end of that tune. But the thing is, as soon as you hear it, you go, oh yeah. But like, how did I not figure that tequila and Saliba scan so well? So it's like, oh yeah, now I get it. And I listened to the instant reaction earlier, and I think Paul's got the kind of the spirit of the song, which is actually that like it does start to get a bit much towards the end, but then you get the massive climax, the Saliba. But also you can't not then do the start again.
Exactly.
It's like, it runs together. What you get bored with or run out of breath or whatever is the middle bit, is the kind of and then it kind of goes up.
Saliba!
And that's why it's self-generating. And I know like loads of people tweeted me to say the commentator, and I heard you say as well, the commentators are literally begging for this to end. I went down into the concourse for a beer at half time, and it didn't end.
Yeah.
It might have ended when the TV stations cut away.
Well, it's funny, right? Because like normally when a player, especially a defender, scores such a beautiful goal from such a lovely move, swept in so beautifully, they'll spend the whole time purring about it. And to be fair, he did purr about it, the knee lift and the way he just sort of almost like he's in training, just sweeps it in. But almost immediately their thoughts went straight to, You know what this means?
Yeah.
That song's going to be playing the rest of the half. Like they were desperate for it to stop.
Yeah. I saw someone made a great Simpsons meme. There's an episode where what's it? There's just like a little one-off character who basically, if you give him like a nickel, he plays for hours. And there's the what's his name? Oh, I've forgotten the name of the character. The like the piratey kind of guy whose name I forget. He's like, oh, not a nickel, he'll be playing for hours. And like, yeah, I saw someone tweet like, oh, not a Saliba goal, they'll be singing for hours. The only shame was, because that was at our end, we were in like the corner, but he went over to the other corner flag, which was, especially considering I was in the front row, I was really hoping it'd come over to our bit and that there'd be like a big bundle. But given that when Jesus scored his ever so slightly offside goal, he went over to the other corner, I do wonder if they were told, because Bournemouth is one of those it's the smallest away allocation in the Premier League, and it's very near the pitch, and anytime there's a late winner at Bournemouth excuse me, it's like everyone just ends up on the pitch, and not because they want to be on the pitch, but just like the force brings them onto the pitch. So I wouldn't mind betting they were told to go to the other corner, but yeah, all good fun.
I wonder, so I'm curious, how far back would you say you have to go till you can remember a moment where you'd go away, or really home or away, but away, and there was no drama, no aggro, no conflict, no arguments, no, just good fun for 90 minutes in the sun? Like, how far do you have to go back to remember it being this stress-free, being around other Arsenal fans at the Arsenal and just enjoying the football this much?
I think you have to go back to the last time we won 3 games in a row. In fact, we won 5 games in a row at the beginning of the season. Yeah. And I remember we were like towards the end of our unbeaten run and singing "We Are Unbeatable" and stuff like that. Literally, I think you have to go that far back. And what this is something like, I didn't want to tweet about it because it's just too like potentially too divisive, and like people will argue, and I'm just not in the space where I want to argue with Arsenal fans at the moment. But one of the things I thought of, like for the last couple of years, and particularly pre-COVID, like singing about Arsenal fan TV, and I keep like, because I can't help myself, I keep just like, why the fuck are you singing about that? Like, who, like, this is just like, everyone's got their heads far too far up their arses. They're taking the internet far too seriously. Like, why are you singing about what some guys are doing outside? Like, who cares? And I've been getting a lot of, no, they're causing all this discord. You know what's great about this? They're still there doing what they always did, and more power to them. And no one cares anymore. All of a sudden, nobody thinks that they're the reason that everything's divided and rubbish and all that. They're still out there doing their videos and stuff like that, and no one cares. And it's great because everyone's singing about the team, and like the whole songbook's been refreshed. And, I've spoken a lot of times about there being like a bit of an injection of new blood into the away crowd as well. And that's freshened up the songbook. We're no longer singing about guys who left us years ago. We're not singing about guys that we don't like that left us years ago. Like, it's all just had like a bit of a spruce up, and it's just like, honestly, it's brilliant. It's so good. That's what it should be like. And I know that's easier said than done. And there are times where, like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that, like, in the Emery year and like the end of the Wenger reign, I was standing there going, "Come on, guys, let's get." I was kind of standing there pouting a little bit. I like to think I wasn't like singing about Arsenal fan TV because I've got better things to do, and like I don't think like being vitriolic or poisonous or anything. Most of the time, I was kind of standing there going, this again,
rethinking life choices.
yeah, exactly. And I'm not at an age where I start these chants anymore, but I got to a stage where I wasn't even joining in that much, but now, like, fully into it, and it's brilliant. Honestly, it just, when you think at the risk of monologuing here, but then I am on my own effectively, so I'm going to a little bit.
Ignore me. I got nothing to say.
if I'd been on the instant reaction, again, I was listening to the instant reaction earlier, so it's like framing some of my thinking. I think my overall headline, I'm toying with writing about this week, so maybe this is me workshopping material, but is the nature of disappointment, right? Because you think of the way last season ended, like it was shit. Like there are very few ways a season could end worse for an Arsenal fan than how ours ended. Like that was trauma. Yep. Nobody, the players, manager, fans, nobody has taken it into the new season. And there's something about when you get disappointment, that really shows you where a fan base is. Because when we finished 5th under Emery and we blew it, I wasn't sitting there thinking, okay, but this is better than last season. We're building something. I was just thinking, this doesn't feel like the beginning of anything. I'm not sure if it's the end of something, but it doesn't feel like the beginning of anything. Or the season, the first time under Wenger when we finished 5th. In 2017, like I didn't feel good about that. That felt like the end of something, and like there are kind of plots where you get disappointments as an Arsenal fan, and it's just like, well, that's just shit. Or like the Birmingham defeat, and you start to think this is more than just a cup final defeat. This feels like the slide. We're at the end of something here, and then we drag that end out for a long time. Or the Europa League final against Chelsea, you feel like, oh, this feels like the end of, or the fact that we were at the end of something for years and we haven't even begun again. But when you get disappointments when you're on a good trajectory, generally fans stay with you, I think. So when Arsenal blew the league in 2003, nobody was standing there going, well, we're never going to do this again, are we? Everyone was like, we're in that race next season with United again. We know we are, and we're probably pissed off this time. So like, you know what I mean? You plot, disappointment shows you where you are. And we had a big disappointment only a few months ago. And look at everyone. Everyone's still smiling, dancing, happy. That tells you a lot, tells you a hell of a lot.
Mm-hmm. And I think like it is the case that when it's fun like this and people are connected to it like this and feel really excited about it. And I think this is obvious, but it's really struck me because I find myself involved in a lot of debates and conversations about Arsenal. The disagreements feel less pointed, right? The opposing viewpoints feel more lighthearted and enjoyable and collegial, right? There's just an ability to discuss Arsenal, whether you agree or disagree, in a way that's really productive and enjoyable. And like also have a hell of a lot of fun laughing at the opposition. Like I have to admit, I'll do schadenfreude when we're sitting 12th. I don't care.
Yeah.
But when you're top of the league and you can laugh at Chelsea or laugh at United or hell, even laugh at City a little bit, it feels a hell of a lot more fun. I do want to ask you quickly about the Saliba goal, though. Did you get a chance in real time to see Zinchenko's reaction to it?
I didn't see Zinchenko's reaction to it, no.
Have you since?
I have done since, and it's fantastic. The thing about being in the front row is actually we had a lot of space, and there were about 10 of us sat together. So after every goal, basically, it looked a little bit like Ring of Roses. I think it's just like a big huddle. So I didn't see that, but I have seen it since. And again, like that shows you something about the team spirit, right? Zinchenko's been here 5 minutes, and so Saliba. They're both new in different ways, like, but and that always I always think about that, like how quickly like teammates become like really good friends, because it must be a really intense environment when you're all together all the time and you depend on each other. And like, they've both been here 5 minutes. How does Zinchenko already have such like a strong feeling about this guy, and obviously feels warmth towards him? It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, I loved it. I mean, for those who haven't seen it, he puts his hands to his head like he's like, oh my gosh, what just happened? It is, I think, a training ground set piece, essentially. It's taking shorts, the overlap, it's to the far post, Shaka's there, slides it back, and obviously if you're going to have a pull back to the top of the box for a shot, you're going to set that up for Saliba, because apparently no one can strike the ball quite like him, and Zinchenko
on the left foot as well.
On the left foot. Oh, a cultured left foot, you might say, just said the guy's incredible. The guy's incredible. To be fair, they were like, do you see this in training? He's like, nope, never saw that in training. So maybe a little bit of good fortune with the way he struck it. But yeah, it did look really good. I want to ask you just about the sort of system and formations that you're seeing, being at the ground. Like, to be fair, you don't really have the bird's eye view from the away end at Bournemouth, but it really is interesting. I tweeted during the game, like, I defy you to say what Zinchenko's position is.
Yeah.
As you're watching this,
the
do you find
Cancelo
yourself going,
role.
what's he doing over here? And why is that guy over there? Are you able to sort of sense the way it's not programmed? Sounds too specific, but you know what I mean? The way that it is choreographed, or does it feel, even just watching, very difficult to sort of assess the system and where these players are going because they're popping up in such interesting positions?
Yeah, Clive said something interesting on a pod recently. I know that doesn't narrow it down, but he said something about he said something about, like, just always think of it as there are always 5 back and there are always 5 forward, and I can't not see that now every time. And I've gone back and I went back and looked at the Palace Leicester games because I was doing that piece on Shaka and I was screen capping. I was looking at where everyone is. I did it I only had time to do it for the first half this morning, and to be honest, that was the fun half. And like every time I stop it, it is just 5-5, and it kind of, and within the 5 front spaces, you generally get the same 5. There are like 6 players who will pop up in those 5 places, but and like they'll swap like lanes a bit. So Martinelli is either wide left, or he's one inside, or he's centre forward. He doesn't go over to the right. Jesus often in either the right or the left half space. Look where he is for that first goal when Ben White frankly fucks up that lofted ball. He's over in the left half space. He does this a lot. He's pulling out a little bit to create a gap for someone to run into, and often that's Shaka actually. And so you basically, it's almost like chess pieces. Like they're all allowed to move over one. Like you've got the king that can go anywhere, which is Jesus. And then the other guys, they've all got like one of 2 lanes that they'll occupy. And that, like, when I watch Arsenal now, I don't see 4-3-3, I don't see 4-2-3-1 or anything like that. I see 5-5 every single time. And whenever like I watched it, but like again, my view at Bournemouth, I was in the front row in the corner. The first half, when all the fun happened, we were kicking up the other end, and I forgot my sunglasses on a day when the sun was absolutely beat. I literally watched, for those of you who watched the video,
there's a great picture of all the away fans looking like they're doing Pepe's goal celebration, and they were like, oh, it's a farewell ode to Pepe.
It was just like I had the whole, and also like trying to just stop the sunburn as well, and my face going bright red. So, I couldn't see that well. But when I watched it back, it's just 5-5 every single time. And that's what I see. I don't see any other formation. I really don't.
The interesting thing, though, is even as much as it looks so choreographed now in terms of the way the players work together and the understanding they have and the way the ball is moving, every once in a while, it takes individual brilliance to get the ball rolling. We almost get the opening goal away to Palace through individual Gabriel Jesus brilliance that falls to Martinelli, but he misses the sitter. Against Leicester, we get the ball rolling with individual brilliance from Jesus to put it in the back of the net. And here again today, it's individual brilliance that gets the ball rolling because Jesus takes 4 or 5 players out, lofted ball, strength to hold up, kills it dead, drives past 3 defenders, slides a through ball to Martinelli to take out the 4th defender, and then the Martinelli shot falls to Odegaard for the tap in. And I've been saying this a lot, but we're going to see so many more scrambled goals and tap-in goals and things like that because of the number of players we can get close to the box, inside the box, close to goal, taking shots from close positions. But once again, Tim, it's another game where Gabriel Jesus gets us off the mark through his own individual brilliance, and it cannot be overstated. What is the thing that I banged on about the last few seasons? A force of nature player, right? It was Van Persie. It was Henry. It was Alexis, a player who can take a game by the scruff of its neck and create something through his own individual brilliance that changes the way the strategy goes for both teams. Scoring first against a low block team is a big part of it. We do it, and again, it's Jesus that gets us started.
Yeah, even I, for all of the qualities I've espoused about this guy, even I missed the kind of the hold up play element of it. That's the bit that, like, I'm not sure I've seen that from him before. Which is not to say he's never done it, but the way
Ramsdale said
and
he has a mean streak, and you see it,
yeah,
right? The
oh, he
competitiveness
does
in every duel. Yeah.
100%. One of the things. One of the things I have said many times is I've never worked out how Premier League defenders have never worked out that he plays on the edge. He was sent off a fair few times playing for Palmeiras and has been for Brazil. Like, he does play on the edge, but for some reason Premier League defenders have never twigged to try and get in his head. But where he is, like, again, that, because you can talk about like structures and systems and all of that, but like where he is when Ben White miscues, so it's not a deliberate pass, and he's over off slightly to the left, and he runs to the centre. Like, that wasn't choreographed. Nothing about that was choreographed. And then he takes it. And the way he like smashes into the Bournemouth defender, who's like almost twice his size, and then kills it. And like everything else that happens there, brilliant as it was, like beating players in tight spaces, seen that a million times from this guy. And that's where, like, he started as a winger. Like, people think he started as a striker and went to the wing. Other way around, started as a winger, became a striker, went back to the wing. So he's always had that. But like the holding the ball up part is just great. And the other thing I'd say, though, in terms of goal scoring is I always feel like good teams with varied attacks, basically there'll be like one day for each of your attackers. Generally, you want them all playing well, but in terms of like maybe goal scoring or making goals, and like we've had the Martinelli day, we've had the Gabriel Jesus day, and now we've got the Odegaard day. We'll get the Saka day.
Sure. Yep.
Very, very soon. But do you know what I mean? Like, I always feel like Man City, they always had like the Mahrez day, the Sterling day, the Sane day.
Yep.
Every day was the Aguero day. But you know what I mean? Like those good teams. And Arsenal had it with their really good teams. You had the Henry day, again, most days, or the Pires day, or the Ljungberg, or the Wiltord day. And that's what this felt like in terms of the scoring of the goals. It feels to me like those guys have all been on a level this season so far. But then, like, in terms of sticking it in the back of the net, there's a different guy each game who's come out and gone, I was the goal scorer. I was the one who scored the important goals today. And that's incredibly encouraging.
Yeah, I joked during the Newcastle game where City were struggling a little bit to break down Newcastle, just really find their way through. I said, I'm a little nervous with a couple weeks to the window left that City are going to send a huge bid for Gabriel Jesus over to us because he looks exactly like what they're missing right now. And I mean, it is sort of a miracle that we have gotten this player. And I think there were some comments post-match also, about Jesus, just sort of saying, look, he was great at City, but he had to be within that structure to keep his place. Now he's playing through the middle with a lot more freedom to be the leader, and he can bring some of his own personal flair to the team. He doesn't have to worry that, if he tries a little something or wants to dominate the ball a little bit, that he's going to lose his place. I think some players thrive in competition, but maybe some players feel a little restricted in competition, right? That sense that I have to just do exactly what's asked of me the right specific way and not take too many risks, because if I lose the ball or I'm not in the right position, I might lose my place. And Jesus is everywhere and he's doing everything, and long may it continue.
Yeah, and I guess to finish, the thing is, Jesus did that fine, not more than fine. Like, he did that brilliantly for City, but he was there 5.5 years. I think after like 4 years of that, exactly the same for Zinchenko. Very, very similar in terms of the level of role he was playing. Yep. Like, at some point, particularly at like when you're 25, at some point you probably go, okay, I've done this now. I need something else. I need to be the main guy or something, And yeah, I think they've both been like really, really liberated to come to. I'm sure neither of them regrets a single second that they've spent at Manchester City. Don't get me wrong, but I think they probably both just came to a stage where they're like, okay, I've done that. I've got all my medals. I've worked with Pep Guardiola. He's brilliant. probably the last year or so, he started to get on my tits a little bit as he seems to with his intensity. So just and it's not personal. It's not like polemic. It's just it happens to all of us in our careers and in life. It's just like need a change, need a new challenge, and I think I always felt this was the right one for him. And I'm more than anything, I'm just delighted to be right, Elliot.
Yeah, I mean that is really what this is all about, more than anything, as you said. But no, I mean it is wonderful to see, and now we have that player, and everybody else benefits as a result of it. I want to have a chance though to do just a little schadenfreude with you before I let you go, because we're going to get with Paul and Clive just momentarily and dive into the game in a more granular way. But this weekend, again, I mean, we didn't get quite the result we want from Spurs, and I could do a whole pod on how pathetic their football is and craven. And I mean, I get it. You got a couple of good forwards, lump it up to them and hope they win for you. And occasionally they do, but whatever. Don't care about them. What we do care about is Chelsea getting absolutely smoked by Leeds, and then Manchester City dropping points. And like, let's start with Chelsea. Tim, the only thing I can think of that will save them is 4 years at $400,000 a week for Aubameyang. That's it. And so go do that. Add that to Sterling and Cucurella, and you are, you're all set, Chelsea. We're good. I mean, that team and that manager look like maybe they're coming apart, it seems, a little bit.
Yeah, and I've had this sense from them for a little while. I did see like some tweets from Chelsea fans who are like, this hasn't been great since about New Year, effectively. Mm-hmm. And like they were all like tipped by myself as well to really challenge for the title last year. It never happened. The thing I still don't get is I just don't get what kind of fucking unicorns Tuchel wants in his forward line. He's got so many, and don't get me wrong, I've said it millions of times, Chelsea, not strategic, they just throw money at the wall. But he's got like every type of attacker that he's inherited. Not a balanced unit or anything like that. Definitely get rid of a couple of them. He hates all of them. I don't get why. It's like, what do you want from like an attack? Like what are you actually after here? It seems really, really weird. And yeah, I've said for a little while, I did have a little hunch that he might go this summer, although more around the ownership thing rather than anything else. But yeah, I wouldn't bet a lot of money that he'll last till the end of the season. And I don't think it's because he'll be sacked, but I do wonder if he'll just be like.
My only thing there is we just don't know what Bowley is going to be like versus Abramovich, right? Like we're so used to the Abramovich thing where it's like, I don't care how good a manager I have, when I'm unhappy, I'm going to sack him. And I just don't know what Bowley's mentality will be there. It is really incredible. If you can't win with Lukaku and you can't win with Werner and you can't find a place for Pulisic and you can't find a place for Callum Hudson-Odoi and you can't make it work with, I don't know how they think Havertz is that good, but like, and you think the answer is I'll go get a late prime, post prime, 30-year-old overpaid Aubameyang who couldn't make it work for Arteta's Arsenal.
Out with.
Right. Good point. And I've fallen out with it at Dortmund previously. Like it smacks of not knowing, right? Of searching for the answer. Meanwhile, your defense is non-existent. You've tried to move on from a midfield that worked for you to now not really knowing what that is. And it's so great because the thing that scared me is it's going to take time for Bowley to get this, but maybe the team's just good enough and Tuchel's just good enough that they will be able to push through Bowley's learning curve, but it doesn't look like that's the case. And if Bowley leans into thinking he knows how to fix it, I alone can fix it, like they could get worse. They could be United. They could be a club that spends, but doesn't have a plan, doesn't know who the manager should be, won't build to him because you have a cult of personality at the top. Like they could be just as calamitous and hilarious as United. And then, you look and Manchester City, like they're probably going to win the league. Like they have too much talent. The coach is too good. They're too established. But I do think that the Haaland thing is an adjustment. Their players that are their most important players, aren't, young anymore. I mean, Haaland is obviously, but so, and I do think that sometimes just being able to refocus year in, year out to go try to get 92, 93, 95 points in the Premier League is hard. This may be a team that goes on to win the Champions League, but maybe they all suffer, Pep included, to really be focused and locked in on the Premier League. And oh, by the way, I mean, they're down 3-1 to Newcastle, who are no slouches, and they come back and they bring it to 3-3 away. So like, I'm not throwing sand on their, throw sand on graves, dirt on their grave, but like, do you buy that collectively Liverpool struggling physically after a lot of exertions and a small squad and, losing some players, City, maybe some of that same thing, Chelsea in transition, United in flux, Spurs are Spurs, so you don't have to worry they could never win a title even if they wanted to.
Are you saying that Leicester are going to win the league?
I'm saying that we are Leicester. That's what I'm saying. It doesn't feel, and I know we're 3 games in, but it doesn't feel like the first game of the preseason I joked we're going to win the league. That's being silly. I guess the best thing I can say, Tim, and I want to see if you agree, I don't feel absurd suggesting it's a goal. And again, we're 3 games in. We haven't played amazing teams, but I'm merely saying that the suggestion no longer feels totally absurd to me as it might have just a week or 2 or 3 ago.
Yeah, and a lot of that is, like you say, because City and Liverpool are going through some things. And I watched this game, and for 60 minutes, City seemed to forget that Haaland was there. And then all of a sudden, when they were 3-1 down, they were like, oh, fuck, he's here. We've got him. Because he scores and then he goes through 1-on-1 within 2 minutes, and then Newcastle are on the rack. Maybe that's a really unfortunate turn of phrase for Newcastle, but yeah, it might I don't think it will be 100-point year. I agree. I think City will win the league. I think they'll probably win it quite easily. The thing about City, you're right about that adjustment with Haaland. They've lost Sterling, Jesus. These are guys, Zinchenko. These are good players who know that system inside out. And of course, it's going to be a bit of an adjustment. And Bernardo Silva, who scored a brilliant goal today, he's been mentally half in and half out for a little while. So they've lost Fernandinho, who, although not an on-pitch presence anymore, as an off-pitch kind of leader, some bits have come out of that squad. None of them irreplaceable, but you add them together, and I think they add up to something. But I would also say that City do tend to. There have been some seasons where they've started slow, like the COVID season. They started quite slowly, and then I think they figured out COVID football, and they called their press off a little bit, and they were like, "Look, let's just go back to being Man City and passing teams to death and keeping the ball and all of that." And they went and won the league. I wouldn't mind betting that they get over this adjustment pretty quickly, but it's an adjustment nonetheless.
Look, they conceded 2.3 expected goals in this game, but they had 3.57 expected goals, 70% possession, 21 shots. I'm by no means suggesting they're done. It's just that more than anything, I guess all I was trying to say is, and it is the euphoria of winning 3 games, and 3 games from now, I could literally have audio of this clipped and thrown on the internet, embarrassing myself. But I cannot name another time in literally recent memory, would be the Leicester season, was the last time that I didn't feel absurd saying at any point in the season, I don't think we're out of it. We've kicked off every season being out of it in recent memory.
Put it this way, it's the most likely it's been for a long time. And that's not the same as saying it's happening, right? But it's the most likely. No, that could mean
it's a 10% chance, but that's above the 0% chance it's been seasons.
Exactly.
So that's well explained. Okay, let's leave it there. We got to get into the actual game with Clive and Paul. Tim's on Twitter @Stoberto. Tim, you have something, final thought?
No, I was just going to say...
No. I saw a little finger go up. I didn't know if you had any final thought there.
Oh, no, I was just waving to the camera.
Waving, it's a wave. Okay, missed it. My bad. It was a blurry pixel. Kind of like what kept Jesus from scoring his goal the other day. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say my pleasure as always.
Thank you very much. That's Tim. We'll come back with Paul and Clive now. And Clive's on Twitter @ClivePFC. Hello, Clive.
Hello.
And Paul's on Twitter @PausMyPants. Hello, Pause.
Woohoo!
Woohoo, indeed. I do want to let everybody know, look, some days Clive comes on here and I'm like, this guy is so smart. This guy just gets it. He understands things at a deep level, and I am in awe of his intellect, which I can only strive to approach. And I think every once in a while, the world gives you something so that you can feel better about yourself. And that happened to me today when Clive came into our recording environment and declared forcefully, there is a technical error. I cannot hear anything. And I looked at him in the camera and typed into the chat, "Your headphones aren't in your ears," which was indeed the technical problem. So today is my day to gloat. We can gloat about Chelsea, and we can gloat about City, and we can gloat about United, who play tomorrow or today if you're listening to this, and that should be fun. There's going to be schadenfreude all over the place, just all over the walls, all over the floors, all over the ceiling. But there's also Clive forgetting to put his headphones in his ears, and I, for one, loved it. So the football's good, the recording is good, the friendships are good, and Clive, I think that Manchester City might be regretting their decision to send the best player in the Premier League to Arsenal. We are not regretting it. I said this to Tim, but I want to dive into it a little more. The most important thing you can do in football is score the first goal. It's not going to decide the game, but certainly against teams that want to pack it in, that want to see if they can get to halftime 0-0, maybe start to feel confident. If you can get that first goal, you change the dynamic. We've seen it happen against us. We also seen it happen for us against Palace. Gabriel Jesus, brilliance. Sitter for Martinelli could have been the first goal. Against Leicester, Gabriel Jesus, individual brilliance for a goal. And against Bournemouth, Gabriel Jesus takes a ball down, kills it dead, beats four guys, slides it to Martinelli, and a tap in for Odegaard. It's not just his skill, it's his ability to step up before the game has been decided. Not to tap in the fourth and fifth goals, but to open the scoring that I think is showing that he has more than just talent. He has real responsibility. And, that for me has been one of the big takeaways so far is his leadership on the pitch in terms of the responsibility he takes right from the start of the game.
Yeah, there's a couple of things here. I often use a term when I'm doing my little bit of coaching, life coaching and exec coaching. You have your peak work years. We all have those years in our career when we don't mind working 14 hours. Well, no problem. I'll take 4 trains to work. These are my peak working years, my career years when I'm building myself, building my earning power. And I feel we picked up Jesus in his peak working years. Just because he's a pro footballer, he's ready to go. He's building his career with us based on his persona as a 25-year-old, not as a 19-year-old when he arrived in the country, right? So we have him at the right time. He's walked into our room and say, yeah, I like these people here. I have a role. It's not about your ability to play. It's about the role that you have and your responsibility within the club environment that has put faith in you. And he seems a humble individual that actually is repaying that with his ability on the pitch and how he applies himself and the example that he sets. You think about football, and we've all now had an exposure to the dressing room, so we all know about team talks now, right? So We're all experts, right? So is that fair? Every single team says the same thing. We want to get on the front foot. We want to impose our game on them. We make sure we get after them. First tackle, first challenge, blah, blah, blah. You've heard it all now. Trust me, I hear it every week. And the manager I work with is pretty vociferous, right? So, and to get your game out, to get your game on before the opposition does, needs a certain amount of quality, a certain amount of intensity that makes you different to the other elite athletes in the league. And we have that in Jesus. We have that in other players too. Everyone wants to do the same thing. They want to control the story of the game. So why are we getting to control more stories right now? Because we are a cohesive, one-brain unit that is on the same page, that completely buy in. And that's why the manager has ripped out the guts of this squad to get to here. So people that were worried about certain individuals who were their favourites, it doesn't matter who they are, as long as we're all on the same boat. You live and die by it. Do you see what I mean? And we can all see it now, and it all looks clear. And Jesus is obviously one of those flagships in that environment, and it's so clear to everybody right now. What I said last night on the instant reaction, I'm so happy that everyone can see everything. Do you know what I mean? And by that, it's great because we all become unified then, isn't it? And no mysteries. We can all see it. We all enjoying it, and it's just brilliant. Really is.
Yeah. Paul, do you want to add to that? I mean, look, we've talked so much about Gabriel Jesus. I'm reluctant to do too much on him because there's so much more to get out of this game, but it is really interesting to see the way he just transforms his team. And what's interesting is if you look at his heat map from this game, there's a lot more on the right side. And what do you know? Odegaard, much more involved in the game. Shaka, more involved in the game. And the left pod wasn't as dominant. Where Jesus goes, good things happen for the players on that part of the pitch.
Yeah, most of our attacks came down the right-hand side for sure. For the first time in 3 games, I think 45% or 43% of our attacks were down the right-hand side, according to WhoScored.com. And you look that up because you think, ooh, that was different. Ben White overlapping, the lads swinging in from the right-hand side to get on the end of stuff from the left-hand side. It was still very dynamic. I think what's been eye-popping with Jesus, I mean, Bournemouth aren't great, but they had an effective plan to the point people thought this might be a fairly stiff challenge, that we should win, but a stiff challenge. They had some big lads in their team. And Jesus is showing that if he gets marked by a big centre-back, he can roll them. He'll bump them in the air and win a header or knock them off the ball. That they need to respect him when they're muscling him because he'll spin them and make them look stupid. He'll drop in with speed into midfield and create space between him and the centre-back who's following him, who needs to be careful because he's about to be put on his ass. And that happened once or twice in this game. The lead into the first goal is basically that, and Gabriel Jesus puts his centre-back on his ass, slaloms past 3 players, squirts it out to the left of Martinelli, who gets a shot on target, and Odegaard is there on somewhere between the penalty spot and the 6-yard box to swoop in. And it's like he's got 2 assists for setting up 2 goals. The second one, the goalkeeper doesn't know what hit him. He thinks Jesus is going to bang in a shot, and Odegaard takes it off his toe, puts it the other side of the goal. It's just so dynamic and chaos oriented, but it's chaos we're creating. He's fantastic. The physicality of his play is the eye-opener. Like, I've been playing around with this. Could he match Haaland for this season or for these upcoming seasons in terms of being the centre forward people are talking about? And you think of Haaland and his physicality and his power and his running, and like Jesus has got all of that at the moment. I mean, this should be phrased humbly against a phenom like Haaland. But like, the conversation is there right now, and he's all over the pitch in a way that I think Haaland is much more anchored to that centre. And for positional play, it's just, look, Haaland can do whatever he likes, but we've got a guy who enters the conversation in terms of a centre forward that everybody should be talking about. It's great, and it's just opened us our unpredictability, the ways in which we can attack. His dribbling creates things for himself and others.
Yeah, and Clive, like the interesting thing is, if you look at what's happening in the box, Odegaard gets a tap in, and he gets not a tap in, but a really nice taken second. But, off of a touch from Jesus in the box, drawing a lot of attention. Shaka has a tap in from the center of the box this season. We have Martinelli should have scored a pretty easy chance in the first game against Palace. And all of these things happen because of the amount of attention that is required to track a Gabriel Jesus run. It's no accident that he's one blurry pixel offside from scoring a very good goal, a very well taken goal, and a very beautiful Odegaard assist in this game, and stays onside for others. His runs are so sharp, defenders have to drop and follow, or he can beat a defender and pull another one out. And so what that's doing is it's just creating loads of space for other players. Earlier games, that had benefited Martinelli. In this game, the one who really reaps the benefit winds up being Odegaard. But is that fair that, like, one of the things that's happening for us in the box is that he's demanding more attention? Our last center forward, right, an easy day for the center backs. They could focus on where the threat was. Now they have to follow this guy. They have to track his runs, and suddenly there's a lot more room for everybody else, and they're really enjoying it.
Yeah, you have to respect him, and you have to respect him, so you have to mark him. But what he's doing, he's very good in his one-on-ones, so you don't have to respect him one-on-one. You've got to respect him two-on-one. But the rest of the team has to say, okay, we have somebody that's in charge of his duels, so I need to move. I need to run. I need to run through. I need to collapse the defense. And they're doing that. People that are not deemed to be good at that are doing that because they know they need to do that. You see what I mean? If someone punches out of his hole, someone's got to punch in. And whether it's Shaka, who's we've all think is a left of a double pivot, he's saying, well, now I'm going to show you I've got something else. I'm going to arrive on the back post. I'm going to drive through. I'm going to distract. I'm going to move people around. It's just a cohesion that we're seeing. Right? And I know I said this before, and I learned this only last year. I've said this 100 times, and I really want people to get it. When I say you're as good as your forwards, a team delivers hope from what that guy can do. The whole thing about football is to score. When the guys at the top end of the pitch are doing things to defenders that make you feel emboldened and powerful and strong in your game, what you do as a midfielder, you step onto the play. You win the second ball. What you do as a defender when the ball's being pressed on the exit, you get up behind people. You're a lot tighter. You're not dropping off. You're winning collisions. You're retaining the ball. You're ringing the box. You're maintaining waves of attack. And I don't want to just say it's just one player, because we're not a one-man team. But I think he lifts people. Players like that lift people. We've seen the physical, for me, you've seen a physical step forward in Martinelli, and why wouldn't you? He's now 21. And so basically he's still growing up. You've seen what Shaka can do. He's shouldering people to the floor. He's just 20 years of age. You know, the potential is massive. Odegaard's not a stranger to the league anymore. He understands what's going to happen to him if he doesn't look after the ball. And so we are just developing into a unit which looks very, very balanced. I can't stress this enough, really. I always say to myself, the hope of a forward gives us all hope. So I found myself thinking today, Elliot, I've done a bit of a you actually. I hope you don't mind, right? But when we have a player that good in those areas, I'm starting to think, okay, what do we do now? Because he won't be able to play every single game, every single minute. What do we do?
Yeah.
What do we do? He's gapping people, right? He's gapping people. Eddie shows a lot of promise. He looks quite nice. But I'm starting to think,
you're going full whiskers on me here. I'm rubbing off on you.
This is where I'm going. You might like this, actually.
Okay, I love it.
I've been looking at wingers today, and everyone thinks we need a Saka replacement. I don't think we do. I think we just need, because I think Vieira can do a job there. I think Smith Rowe can do a job on the right hand side. I'm not worried about it. Most teams attack left, right? Most teams are asymmetric. They attack left strongly. Mm-hmm. I'm starting to think we need a left winger, a really strong, explosive left winger. And because I think the next best centre forward that mirrors Jesus is Martinelli. That's what I think. I think his game and physicality is developing to a level. He's the only one that can do something close to what Jesus could do. And people say, what about Eddie, Clive? What about the goals scored in the last season? Trust me when I say this. There's a level of intensity and physicality that the closest player we have to Jesus is Martinelli. It's to be confirmed. Doesn't have to happen tomorrow morning. But if we were to have a problem there, I can see that player moving inside a little more and maybe dovetailing with an Eddie and rotating a little bit more. That's why Eddie's sometimes coming on in wide areas. Do you see where I'm going? Wide areas on the left-hand side. They're developing a plan, they're developing partnerships, they're developing relationships while the going is good. Exactly what I said we should have done back in March. Remember when I said it? We needed to do this. We didn't score enough goals to allow us to do it. When you're feeling like you can do this stuff, right? And I can see what they're doing on the pitch. They're learning while winning. And it's just fantastic. The manager is decent, mate. I'm telling you, he's decent.
He's decent. I think he's decent. I think we can all get on board with that. I mean, well, so, all right. So look, we all get where we're at with Gabriel Jesus. And look, I think that the lift it has for the team is clear, and Odegaard benefits from it in this game. But Paul, I think it's great and important that Odegaard has that game he hasn't. And it's such a shame the goal is ruled out, right? Because Jesus' day deserved a goal. And
yeah, great little finish.
Great finish. Run. And the pass deserved an assist. And I think it would have been the perfect wrap up to the game for both of them. And I actually think Jesus would have come off then, right? I think he was left on to go get his goal in this game. I think that was a switch, that it would have been Jesus coming off for Nketiah, but then the goal's ruled out and he leaves him on because I think that guy would have not been happy with Mikel if he didn't get his chance to go for his goal in this game. But I think, look, it's going to sound silly to say I think it's important that Odegaard had the good game, right? But he's been given the armband for this season. It's not that he hasn't been good. He's just been a little more peripheral, and he gets 2 goals in this game and should have been an assist, and he gets to feel that pressure lift to whatever extent that pressure starts to build. And I think it's just nice for a player who's had a little more pressure put on him by giving him the armband, right? In a team that's firing, to just show what he can do. And I think it was a really interesting insight from the instant reaction pod that I'm now going to steal and repeat as though it was just mine, which is maybe, just maybe, not taking that right-footed shot when he was in, right? Was it against Palace, right? Against Palace? Yep. Made him think, I got to get my shots off when I'm in dangerous territory. He takes it off of Jesus' toe for the second one. But do you think that there was not a risk that we were going to have a problem with Odegaard, but just that there's a benefit to him getting off, getting his season off and running now with a big game to sort of lift any of the pressure he might have felt at the armband and the first couple of games being a little bit more anonymous for him?
Yeah, sure. Look, I wasn't super worried about him or Saka. I guess there.
Well, you were, because on the live stream when I said who's going to have a breakout game in this game, and I said I personally think it's Odegaard. I think he's going to have a great breakout game. You said no. I think he'll be muted again. The guy's not very good.
That's actually kind of true-ish. I said
it's about 80% true.
Yeah, I kind of said I certainly won't be surprised, and I kind of expect he might have a bit of a quieter game still, because I still thought we'd be doing it down the left-hand side and swinging it into the other side. But I've been fine with that. Odegaard and Saka are players that are so technical, so good. I don't really think form's a thing for them. I'm not even that sure that confidence is a thing for them, as long as they'll get into the box. And if we'd kept creating down the left side of this of our attack in this game and swinging shots into the box, I know that Odegaard and Saka are going to get in and get on the end of them. Now, that's kind of what happened anyway, but not necessarily through the fact that all of our building was down the left-hand side. It's just those where the chances came from. Yeah, Odegaard. So I was interested in the first half because, you go back and you think, well, he scored 2 goals. How busy was he? He was very, very busy. He was very much involved in our build-up play. You go and look at the touches, and the guys with all the touches are 2/3 centre-backs, and you saw White dropping in to form a 3 quite often with the boys. Zinchenko, of course, all over that ball, helping build out, and Odegaard right with them. So Odegaard has 57 touches in the first half. That's a lot. Zinchenko, 59. So and you go back and you have a look at it and you say, yeah, okay, that makes perfect sense. Odegaard was dropping in, floating around. It wasn't just key moments. Odegaard was involved and important. In fact, he might have been there for the biggest moment of the whole game, if I can swing left for a moment. So, I know Tim will have talked a lot about the chant. So I was intrigued in this game to work out, where does a song come from? Where is the genesis of a song? So I did a little video, put it out on the Twitters. I'll put it in the tweets to when we launch this podcast today. And around 36 minutes, Saliba intercepts the ball and the crowd gives him a big cheer, and then they break out the "Oh, William Saliba, oh, William Saliba," and it lasts 2 bars, and then a minute later you hear about 3 or 4 guys, it's probably a lot more, just coming through the hubbub. There's a do coming along. And they get to Saliba. Only they're still working out the kinks. And in fact, a whole bunch of people shout Saliba too soon. So there's 2 Salibas, one after the other. And then about 30 seconds later, it's a bit louder. And a minute later, it's like, oh yeah, this is something. And then it goes and it builds. And the commentators start talking about it. And then some stuff happens. And there's some action. And the ball goes out of play. And you think, oh yeah, it's dying down. But this, the Mana song.
Yeah, when he gets it.
And then it gets really, really quiet at one point.
Phenomena.
Yeah. This has that quality about it. You just need one guy going do. and then thousands of guys jump in on the Saliba. And it's really tested when like one of the Bournemouth guys gets a concussion kind of situation. He's not, his face is all mashed up and it's bleeding. And it's like the song kind of dies down because the guy's he might like leave us. He might pass away. He's fine in the end. And it's like, we're concerned about their player, but this is a very, very catchy song. So why not both? So the guy's lying down. We've got a couple of guys around him checking if he's okay. And then I'm pretty sure I see his left foot start to twitch in tune with the chant. And I'm like, oh, he's going to be okay. And suddenly he shouts Saliba. No, he doesn't. But anyway, there's a comic element to the fact that the Saliba song's just banging away. It goes on for 8-9 minutes. I think it's undefeatable because you just need one guy to keep the flame alive on the do. And then all the other 5,000 people got to do is shout Saliba every 30 seconds.
And off we go again.
We go again. It's fantastic.
I love having a chant that drives everybody else crazy because the commentators hated it. And away fans are going to be hating it. And it's funny too, right? It's never the best players that have the best chants, or it's not always like there was one point in the game where there was one point in the game where they tried to get a Shaka and Emil Smith Rowe chant going, which is a fantastic chant. Right, here we go. And like it lasted, like you said, like a couple bars because they were so desperate to get back to the tequila one for Saliba. So it's just funny. I mean, I love it. A new song is born right after the very good Zinchenko song was born, and it's a season of songs so far. Clive, I want to can we do just a quick section on one thing, because we got to get to Saliba. We got to talk about his goal. We got to talk about his performance. Zinchenko as well, but Ben White starting to get a little bit of the intricacies of right back, I think, is interesting because the second goal comes from him doing something we had not yet seen him do: overlap. He overlaps, he gets to the byline, and it's a really nice cutback to the right area. And I do think that we don't do a lot of overlapping to begin with. Our fullbacks, that's not what they do. Certainly not what Zinchenko does. Sometimes it's Shaka doing it over Martinelli. I mean, there's all kinds of weird things happening on the left. But I think it's another string to our bow if White can do some of those right backy type things in addition to the other roles he's playing. So I thought that was a good sign. I don't think there's really much question about him defensively. He really has shut down the threats that come from his side mostly. But I liked seeing that overlap and cutback. What do you think about him sort of learning the role of a right back in real time?
Well, I don't think he's learning anything. I just think he plays in that right-hand zone. And
so you think he's an idiot? You heard it here first, everybody. Clive thinks White's an idiot. Seems harsh, but
he plays in that right-hand zone of the pitch. Just watch the videos from last year, right? And that's where he's played. He has a starting position as a centre back, so he has a level of responsibility that's maybe 6 yards inside. But if you watch us, he's out on that touchline a lot. So he's barely changed. We just got more insurance behind him. I get, when you say the word right back, I wince. And I sat in the...
Because that's not the position. I get it.
Yeah.
Well, it's your accent. No.
Is it the accent?
He's got that, the American thing. Oh, Jesus.
Nasally?
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know how to explain this, because what we have here is a hybrid defender, which is a front-footed defender that plays in midfield and also rolls around into a back three. Right? So actually the last bit of his role is the right back stuff. Do you know what I mean? The primary part of his role is to solidify midfield to stop the transitions and to make sure if we get exposed on our left-hand side, because our left back is not really a left back, he's more of a midfielder in the central zones and out wide and sometimes high. And what Ben White does, he enables us to have that player there. So we have the right balance. We have the right level of security. He supports Saliba in the one-on-ones. He's taken the best player on the opposition team in Zaha in one game and had a great tackle success, and people were wondering about him because he gave 2 passes away. Switch your analysis. Don't think of him having number 2 on his back. He plays in an area of the pitch which he's perfectly suited for. He is super sharp around the corner in transition. He's super sharp tackling from behind. He intercepts. He can travel. He can pass. He can use the ball both feet. He's just a player that plays in our defence on the right-hand zone. That's it. You have a player playing on left-hand zone of our pitch who's never there, right? He's always somewhere else. He's double pivoting with Partey so you can't block him off. He's being there and available. He's having 50 touches a half. That's working. And the reason why he can go where he likes is because we've got the security of Ben White there. To see him as an enabling defender for other people, but also somebody that underlaps and supports our right-hand side. Now, because we required something else in that goal, the run-around movement, he did it. His crosses are a little bit, they look like a bit of a stick insect out there. Do you know what I mean? He's not really whipping around the ball, but he gets into the area, and we scored a goal from it. Right? So I really rate this player. I really rate his versatility. I really rate his heart. I really want people to see him. I think the manager's seen him, and not how we see that position used traditionally. Because if you can tell me about what we're watching, particularly in our back five per se, our 3-2 or 2-3, sorry, it's not traditional, is it? It's not traditional football as we grew up with. So we need to adapt our analysis accordingly, based on what we all now know, how positional play that Arsenal are playing and what City do, etc. And lots of teams do. Ben White is perfect for that right-hand zone for me, and I think he had a fantastic game.
It's interesting because Tomiyasu came in and he played just a little bit, but we did get to see some of the flashes of what he can do. He played a couple of really good line-breaking passes. You see, his defensive awareness, and I think you can start either of those guys in that position, and you don't lose a thing. I think they are absolutely essentially equal. There may be some things Tomiyasu's slightly better at than White, and White might have a few things he can do Tomiyasu isn't as good at, but like by and large, they are equally as good as each other, but I think equally suited to the role they're given. It's very different than what's going on the left, for example, because do I think Tierney is as good as Zinchenko? I think Tierney is a sensational player. I don't think Tierney can do the stuff Zinchenko does the way we're using him. I think it would necessitate a slight change in approach. Whereas White and Tomiyasu, I think, can play that role in the same way. And it'll be interesting because between Tomiyasu, Gabriel, Saliba, and White, you really have four guys that would be very comfortable playing center back, any of them. So there's a lot of flexibility there. But Clive, I'll stay with you just for a second, then we'll come back, Paul, and talk about this. Let's talk about Saliba because, I mean, look, he only completed 100% of his passes. I think it's fair to say why he didn't complete more. He didn't complete any of the passes he didn't attempt. Not one of them. He did not complete a single pass he didn't attempt. Shocking stuff. No, 100% complete. And he's not just sliding it over to Gabriel. He's finding other players too. He scores a goal that's a sensational bit of skill that leaves Zinchenko literally holding his head in astonishment and glowing about him after the match. He's got a song now that is near worm. And it's like, whatever you want to say about the journey it took to get here, you certainly couldn't have drawn up the destination any better. So Clive, he's not a perfect player. I mean, there are things about the way he defends that I think he will still have to develop on, but what he does on the ball is just a massive value add to the way we want to play. And it's great to see how well this season has started for him, the way the crowd lifted him after the own goal. And now this song, he's got to feel like those days where he was given interviews every day to the French press, about his frustrations. Like those must feel like a million years ago now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's another example of the fans knowing their role in all of this. We're trying to lift people, support people, make this a welcoming place to be. We're going to be there to support you young players for your difficult moments. And I love that. I love that change. I've always wanted to be a better supporter. And that's been one of the reasons why I do this podcasting, actually, to be a better supporter. And what I know about the game, share it, and hopefully other people can learn bits and pieces from what I talk about, right? So I'm loving what I'm seeing around the club at the moment. I absolutely loving the support angle, the well-being angle, the unity, the club angle. This is exactly why I support Arsenal. I just absolutely love it. On Saliba, we all know the player. We watched YouTube for 3 years, for God's sake. We know everything about him, every movement, when he was raw, when he's not heading out of his own box, when he's ducking under balls. But for me, Elliot, you're somebody we know each other well now. You look at the things on the ball a lot. For me, I'm looking at what he does off the ball and how he literally shuts down balls down the side. His early movement to read the play down the side. He wins races. He wins races to the ball. You win races because you read the play. You win races because your physicality imposes yourself on the opposition. They don't want to go near you. And so for me, for someone so young to have that presence that none of us can miss, if you can tell me how many 21-year-old centre-backs have that presence in recent memory, I don't know many. I really don't know many. And sometimes we have to take a breath and say, well, what have we got here? Generally, what have we got here? Think about, we've all been around. We're not 22-year-olds, right? We've all been around. Think back, throughout football and say, what's going on? He's more than likely going to be in the French first team for the World Cup at 21. Easily. Not going to pick Varane, are they? No chance, right? So
he's got a terrible song.
This is a serious moment here. And there are 3 young players in our team, in Saka, Martelli and Saliba. If they sign their contracts, we are in a very strong position. A very strong position going forward.
Yeah, just a quick thing on Saliba. So it may become more and more of a thing, but he's just central to the passing. When you look at the pass map, we kind of form a diamond with Gabriel pushed over to the left to cover Zinchenko, Ben White dropping into the back line quite a lot, and the guy pulling the strings is Saliba. Got the most touches, at least based on the first half, which is the only thing I've pulled up here. But when I went back to look at the chant, I end up watching Saliba, and he's bossing it, and he's pinging it around the place. It's a really good game for Partey too. I know we've had some concerns about, has he hit his, is he hitting form yet? I think he's been instrumental in how we've set up and played in the first 2 games, but maybe not quite had his usual touch. Between him, Zinchenko, Partey, Saliba, they're just bashing it around the place. And it was clear that the Bournemouth weren't great, but part of that was, I think they were set up to get up the pitch, get a couple of corner kicks, get a couple of free kicks in the first half, wheel in their aircraft carriers of players, Moore, Billings, that other fella at the back. I was thinking about it and thinking, why did I come up with aircraft as my analogy when I was thinking about this a little earlier? And then the screen flashes to Scotty Parker with his 3 stripes on his arm. I'm like, the Admiral. It's ridiculous gear. But we saw in the second half when they got the chances to get their players up the pitch. But in the first half, we did not let them out. And part of that was Saliba ganging up with Ben White on his side. And up the front end, you'd see Zinchenko, Martinelli hunting down. They were just hunting in packs, stopping them getting out and boshing them when they went long. So,
yeah.
But Saliba's distribution, people just look to him and know he'll take the ball, put it somewhere safe, do something clever. He's got such poise for a 21-year-old.
He does. And look, when you complete 100% of your passes, that's great. But that's not a qualitative metric. It's a quantitative metric, obviously. And it doesn't necessarily say, how good those passes are. I think there's a lot of tricky passes in there. And the nice thing is, it's not that all the passes he completed were to Ramsdale and Gabriel, right? He did pass to Gabriel quite a bit. He only completed 3 passes to Ramsdale. He completes 32 passes combined to Odegaard, Zinchenko, and Thomas Partey. So he's also giving it to players who are positioned to really build play. He's progressing the ball. He's breaking the lines. He's moving it up the pitch. So, I think that's critical. We can finish on Saliba, but I do just want to say, Clive, the finish is sensational. And it's a set piece. It's brilliantly drawn up. And Zinchenko was asked if that's a finish he's seen in training. He said, nope, haven't seen that before. But who needs headers when you can strike the ball that sweetly with your left foot?
Yeah, it's a really good goal. Actually, I just want to discuss this with you guys, right? Because obviously you both stuck on the distribution side of things, because you can measure it. We can see the passing and we can see it. But I didn't think that was an issue with Ben White last year. I thought his distribution was really, really good. So and so I don't see that as a. And by the way, I could be critiqued here. I was going to say it. I don't see that as a massive uptick in our team per se. But what I do see is our defensive security's gone up through the roof. Right? So when we were rocky last year, in those games we can all remember, I'm looking at this and I don't feel we're going to be bossed. I think the addition of this guy into our back four, back five, whatever you want to say, has made me feel like, we can play against Mateta at Crystal Palace and I don't worry about it anymore. Do you see what I mean? Because you've got White, Saliba and Gabriel. So the physical presence for me is the measure. The distribution side of things, I think we've improved anyway on that from last year. But his extra size, weight, speed is what really stands out for me. And that gives me comfort. And I'm now looking elsewhere for improvements in the team. Do you see what I mean? I'm looking elsewhere Clive, for the solution. So, sorry, mate.
Well, yeah, because we're gonna play higher up the pitch, which means we're gonna be more exposed by long balls. And if you're gonna be higher up the pitch, you need your center back to win races, and you need your center back to be able to go shoulder to shoulder with someone and win that, right? And so I think Saliba gives us the ability to recover those positions when the long balls go in, and use his physique to win those duels. We see Liverpool cleans up their defense that way, in the same way with Van Dijk. You need a player who can do that. City does it with Diaz, right? But I think the reason I focus on the distribution is I think Saliba is going to just get better and better and better. He's such a young player. I think and maybe this is me getting too far into metrics and data, the thing that jumps off the page about him is his distribution and the progressive qualities of his distribution. And so I think, look, we could have put a great defender in there and moved White out to the flank, but if Saliba was a poor passer, I don't think we'd be able to tolerate the difference, right? You can't have 76 passes coming from a center back who's poor on the ball. So it's you know what it is? It's a virtuous circle, right, Paul?
It's a balance.
Yeah, well, the other part of the distribution is like the mental part, right? It's not just the ability. He's got the poise, presence, the standing within the team to basically inherit, or be given the central role to ping shots around, and for everybody to feel the same sense of calm that Clive has, not just defensively, but on the ball. I mean, that's for a 21-year-old, it's huge. Like,
how often does he go to ground? I mean, do you see? You don't see him go to ground much, right? I mean, like the thing with Mustafi that used to drive me crazy is just the guy was on the ground before the ball was even coming at. Like, he was slide tackling before there was even a player there, and you just take yourself out of the play because Saliba has the pace and the physique. He doesn't need to go to ground, right? And that gives you options, keeps you in the play longer.
Physical confidence, right? When you're physically confident, you don't go to ground. When you're physically at your limit, and trust me, I was this player, you slide tackle everywhere, right? Because you have to make that tackle to make up the gaps that you can't cover. Do you know what I mean? And so I recognise Mustafi a lot. My shorts were never clean when I came off the pitch.
Well,
he has one word I'd put on VVD, which is he has that imperious quality about him. For a 21-year-old is amazing.
And it is interesting because you look at the back line, they're all young. Like all these players, the upside of where they could go, as they get it. I mean, Ramsdale, not in goalkeeper prime age. Saliba certainly is not. Gabriel maybe is closer. White is closer. Zinchenko's closer, but they're on the early side of it. Saka's not close. Martinelli's not close. Odegaard's probably just cresting into that. Jesus has just hit it, and you see the difference there, by the way. I hate that we have to do this, but Clive, like, the talking points every game sort of feel the same because the same things are happening, which is great. It means it's repeatable. But one of the things that's happening is Alexander Zinchenko is just getting better and better and better. I still think defensively, he's not the most solid part of our game, but our defense is bolstered by the fact that systematically it's good, right? We defend well as a group because our system doesn't leave us exposed. But there's a moment in this game where he races back and there's a long ball into the I guess wing or half
towards
space.
The channel,
Yep, towards the channel. He runs with the guy, takes it off him, and keeps it. And Clive, one of the things that I have to give Zinchenko credit for, he may not be the strongest defender, but like when White wins a tackle, he kicks it a mile into touch, right, to clear the danger, and that's great, and he's been brilliant defensively. Zinchenko has the ability to win the ball, keep the ball, and progress the ball. He's very, very technical in the way he wins a challenge. He pulls the ball off his man and gets it going forward, and so we see how great he is at activating our ball progression, but I do think he deserves credit for the way he can win a tackle and keep the ball then in play, because we turned Bournemouth around a lot from Zinchenko winning the ball cleanly in a challenge and immediately distributing forward. I think that's a great quality.
Yeah, I will say, if you did a live stream before the game, didn't you?
I did
yesterday?
indeed.
And if I was
Paul
on
and I
it,
both.
I may have said, I wouldn't mind seeing Zinchenko in midfield in this game, only because Bournemouth is quite a small pitch. It's quite a technical area. You have to be very technical. The spaces are small. And I thought he was really suited to that. I thought maybe Tierney could play and Zinchenko inside, but we didn't need to make any changes, and we dealt with them very, very quickly. I think we need to do some studying here, because he's new for us, and his effect, I think, is immeasurably positive. It shook me to my boots when he had 51 touches in the first half of the game versus Leicester last week. That doesn't happen for a left fullback. That means you are basically controlling the game with another player who's almost like a roaming fullback midfielder that gets on the ball and controls play, progresses play. And I think it's a new one for us. It generally is. When I first saw him against Seville, I couldn't believe how I remember I used the word, he comes inside to the centre spot. You have inverted to the half space, but I'm talking to the centre spot. Sometimes he goes beyond it, the other side. I mean, it's incredible what he's doing. He's basically just available. When he gets on the ball, all our heart rates drop, right? It's just wonderful to see. But when we do this stuff, what we do is we overburden somebody else. And much like when we spoke about Ben White against Crystal Palace, we felt he did very, very well. Some people said he was a bit sloppy. But we overburdened him on that side because he had the best player to mark. Right? In this game, Gabriel had their forward threat to mark in Kiefer Moore, who's a very tall player. And, you know, in a some way, I know all the things that we saw, like, were obvious. Jesus, Saliba, Zinchenko, Martinelli, Odegaard, can't miss it. But for me, the coach's man of the match would be Gabriel, because he had the hardest job. He had their focal point. You had to compete with him. You had to quell him. And he's overburdened because Zinchenko's never at home. Do you see what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so that's the guy that quells the opposition's main guy, And I'm not saying he was the best player on the pitch or anything like that, but without him doing that job, we can't see the other things that are in play, right? So he's my understated man of the match in this game. And I think he enables Zinchenko to do what we can all see, which is beautiful.
Yeah, he's underappreciated. I love the little insight we got from All or Nothing, where I can't remember if it's Stuyvenberg or Arteta, it might have been Stuyvenberg, was basically saying to Gabriel, everything with you is your first touch. Concentrate on your clean first touch, because then your pass is always good. And when your first touch isn't right, that's when you get in trouble. And I watched it in this game, and it's so clear. There's one moment where, like, he tries to trap it and it rolls just a little bit out from under his foot. So it's just past his body, right? The circumference of his body a little bit, and his pass is really loose. And then there's another one where he kills it dead. So it's right where he needs it. And he plays a beautiful line breaking pass. I think it's into Shaka. And, like, it's so interesting to have those little insights. Just that little thing, right? Oh, it's all about, watch him next time. Watch him play. If he has a good first touch, his next action is brilliant. If his first touch is a little loose, it's outside his circumference, he hits it on the stretch, it's not as accurate. Really interesting thing I noticed. But Paul, I want to bring up a moment, just a little moment. And look, we can't have every pod just be like, how happy and how amazing is everything. We got to dig into some of the things that are warts, and there aren't many on these games and on this team right now. But there is a moment where Ramsdale gives it to Shaka. Shaka doesn't seem to necessarily have scanned. And because of that, he hits it straight to a Bournemouth player and we're under pressure. It reminded me, actually, of the Burnley goal, remember, where Shaka hits it off a Burnley player into our net. Mm-hmm. Was it Leno? It was Leno, right, who gives it to him right at the edge of the box. Some people say he shouldn't have given it to him there. He doesn't scan. He hits it first time. It bounces off Burnley player into our box. In this one, he's trying to pop it out to White around the corner. He doesn't scan. He hits it to a Bournemouth player. I think Ramsdale deserves some blame here. He gives it to Shaka wide of his body on his left foot under pressure with his back to the defenders, right? With his back to the press. And he doesn't really have time then to think he's got to get the ball away. But it's interesting. Shaka's been so good in this season, and he's good in this game. And I'm starting to rethink like him being up the pitch versus back the pitch. And for so long, I thought Shaka's best place is when he's deeper and he can see the whole pitch. But it's funny. Suddenly he feels like our Henderson, right? Or something like that, because he doesn't have to have 100 touches, 100 passes, start every buildup, face the pressure of every press with two men on him where his limitations on the half turn really hurt him. He's able to use his leadership and his intelligence in space to really just contribute what's missing instead of having to contribute everything. And I thought that was really interesting because it struck me because we're not seeing a lot of Shaka as the deepest player. And the one time we see it, picking it up off Ramsdale, just a little wide of his body, doesn't scan, can't turn, gives it away, and it's a dangerous moment. So I just thought that was an interesting insight in terms of, yeah, maybe actually up the pitch, we're kind of liberating him from some of the overuse, over-reliance that we have, but also some of his challenges in those pressurized spaces with his, facing his own goal,
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think in his own mind, he sees himself as a box-to-box player who can contribute much more freely. I think that's why he hasn't really minded this adjustment in position in the same way we might have anticipated it as being a kind of an insult to his role. He's like, yeah, it's part of what I do. I think Wenger described him early on as a box-to-box.
He did. And changed that pretty quick, though. 2 weeks later, he said he's a deeper playmaker who plays the intermediate value pass. I thought that was a pretty good turnaround.
Yeah, but there's a lot, there's a lot going on back then. Yeah. Shaka originally called himself a 10. Not everybody's 10 is the same kind of 10. I guess it relates to if you're an 8, are you an 8-10 or an 8-6? He does like to look up the pitch. He doesn't. I think he's much better with his back to the opponent up the pitch than he is deep down the pitch.
Agreed.
And if he fluffs it in the attacking third or on the edge of the penalty box with somebody coming in him from behind, it's like big deal. We're probably about to get it back anyway because a transition turnover, counter press, great. Give it away as much you like, Shaka. Those are good areas to give them away. Surrounded by players, you're doing 1-2s with Zinchenko or Martinelli or Gabriel Jesus. You lose, a loose pass in the box can work either way. It does protect us from the fact that he still has some fairly heavy boots at times, but he's a smart guy. I'm not saying he has the quickest mind in the world, but he knows he's emotionally very smart about what's going on in various areas of the pitch and what's needed and what's required. I don't know that he has Xabi or Iniesta levels of neural activities to know what's coming next and the next ball and stuff, but he's pretty good about what needs to be happening in a particular area of the pitch, in a particular phase of the game. He's involved, I think in this particular game, the plan was 3 or 4 times on set pieces to get him on the end of it, or for him to be in the position to be on the end of it, where he's like the far guy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And we saw him, and it very deliberately in positions. Like we saw in the previous, I think it was the Leicester game, he comes zooming in on the post, right? Heads it off the post.
Oh yeah, that's right. That was is that a Saka?
Off a corner, yeah. I think it's a Saka corner. It's a Saka corner.
It's a Saka in swinger. Yeah. Nutty heads off the post, yeah.
Yeah, and so like they're fully embracing his role in this attacking third of the pitch and using him within the set and thinking of him as more of a Gundogan type player, not just, oh, well, you can drift up at times, like they're leaning into it, and Zinchenko filling in there in the pitch. And just the amount of adaptability. And in a way, we just need to let things go for a while. I'm feeling a little Clive here. Let's not be imposing roles. A new child comes into the world. Let's not impose a gender on it quite yet. Let's see how it feels about things. And I think the same is true with Shaka in midfield. We maybe need to let go of things a little bit. They're not as hung up on it. And he's doing his thing.
He's been great. He's been absolutely great. It's just so interesting to see oh, you know what? Up the pitch, actually, some of the limitations that frustrated us aren't as evident. And then we see that one moment deeper back the pitch. It felt a little familiar. And I was like, interesting, because he's not in those zones as much. Clive, you can certainly weigh in on that. But as we start to head for the finish line here, I would like to talk Ramsdale too.
Mm.
Another game where he's kicked it straight to the opposition, flapped at a corner and Jesus clears it off the line. He was asked after the game how he's playing. He said, I'm nowhere near where I want to be, nowhere near the level I need to be. He said, I'm at fault for the Maddison goal against Leicester. I wasn't, I made errors today. I'm nowhere near the level I want to be. I think that's interesting, candid response. He had a very interesting interview all around. A lot of interesting comments. Talked about the nasty streak in Gabriel Jesus, which you love to hear. But I do think it's interesting because he's certainly not hurting us right now. And his distribution, as we've talked about multiple times, is an essential part of our game. But he feels he needs to lift his level. I'm curious if you feel that, and it's funny, even in that interview, we said, I dipped a little at the end of last season and I'm still not near where I want to be yet. And so I like that self-awareness, but I think it's fair. I don't think he's a liability. I just think he's got a level he needs to and can go up to get back to the level he was at when he first arrived. Do you think that's fair?
Yeah, I do. Can I touch on Shaka briefly and then go to Ramsdale?
Either one. Free swim, please do.
I think with Shaka, I think when he came into our team, he's a very responsible player. So I think I used to call him Red a Day. Remember that one? Because I think he tries to put out fires his body can't do, right? So, and that cost us, and we judged him based on his inability to get to the ball on time, right? So we didn't judge him on his character and his leadership and what he did, what he means to the dressing room. We weren't bothered by that. He gave a penalty away against Brighton, mate, and cost us top four. So that's enough for me, right? So, but I actually think maybe slightly different to what Paul said. Maybe what we've done is actually said, because you're a responsible person, I'm going to give you a role which is slightly higher up. And within that role, you've got to do 4 or 5 things. But I'm going to give you these jobs. But you have to trust the back end of the pitch. And when he looks back and he sees Saliba, Gabriel, Partey, White, he hasn't got to charge back into the corner of our penalty area, giving away penalties anymore. Do you see what I mean? His responsibility is to be everywhere where Martinelli and Zinchenko, and he's a guy that he's the glue player for us now. So his responsibility is to glue us in a slightly different way. And so by giving him those jobs, it stops him trying to do too many jobs. That makes sense. I'm not sure if you agree. It's another way to look at it. To bring out somebody's skill and natural character, which is to help people. Do you know what I mean? To help everyone at the cost of himself, right? So, and on Ramsdale, I'm a big fan of him. Not because he's perfect, because he's imperfect. You know me and my imperfect players. I thought he struggled towards the end of last year. I felt he was tired. And he looks a bit like a bit of a sieve at the moment. You know what I mean? The ball could go through him. But I'm all right with it because I see somebody challenging himself to be better. And we're sitting here, top of the league at the moment. Man City can't deal with our hot pace. Do you know what I mean? They've dropped off. So we're sitting there, top of the league, with the youngest team in the league, with the youngest manager in the league. And back to what I said earlier, our role as a group of fans is to support these players through these exact moments when they are not quite 9 out of 10. We still got a very good goalkeeper. There's just a little bit frayed around the edges, just finding out a few realities about being in a goldfish bowl, which is Arsenal Football Club. And if we can just get him through this period by over supporting him like the fans did with Saliba, because we know he's good enough. He will be England's number 1. He's having a flat spot. He's not costing us any points at the moment. But he's also, in all of these games, apart from maybe the one at the weekend, he's made a critical save to allow us to dictate the story of the game, even though there's been a few things that have been a little bit interesting, shall we say. So, for me, let's bear with it. We've made our decision. We have... some people may say we're weaker in goal with Leno going compared to last season. But I think we have a group of goalkeepers that are going to grow together, and he's the youngest one there almost, and he's the one we're putting our eggs in. So yeah, I've got no problem with it, and I think the self-awareness bit of it is really, 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 really astute. And yeah, I'm all for people that know who they are, right? And I just want to support him.
Yeah, and I mean, you see in All or Nothing how much he beats himself up when he doesn't get it right. This is a guy who knows where his game is at. To your point about Shaka feeling very responsible after which game is it where he gets the red card for kicking the guy in the chest?
Liverpool.
City? Liverpool. Thank
Liverpool
you.
away, yeah.
City was the penalty. Yeah, Liverpool. And then he's arguing with his teammates in the training room, and he's like, I have to do it for you. You should thank me. You should be saying, thank you, Granite, because he felt responsible and he had the responsibility. So it's interesting. A couple other fun little tidbits from this game. There's the Martinelli one. I thought it was going in at first, but it skewed wide a little, where he kind of flicks it up on the turn and then strikes it on the half volley, and it goes right by. Emil Smith-Rowe has a nice little cameo where he's in twice and hits it straight at the keeper. I think there was that moment as this game wore on where you could see Jesus first and Martinelli and then Smith-Rowe. They just wanted their goals. And so I think they stopped playing for each other just a little bit, right? Taking shots on from acute angles and things. Because it's 3-0, it's fun, it's over, and you're like, I'm gonna get mine. Like Martinelli does one right from about 20 yards out where he beats the man and he tries to blast it on his right when there's like 3 players he can slip in. I just think that's game state stuff. But I do think, Paul, there were a couple interesting cameos. I think Smith-Rowe looked bright enough. His runs were good. He was found a few times. He had some shots that he struck sweetly to, right at the keeper, to be fair. So good to get him those minutes. Sambi Lokonga looks like he's been in the gym. He looked big. He didn't have much to do. And as I mentioned earlier, Tomiyasu with a couple of fantastic line breakers. I do think it's interesting that Nketiah came on not for Jesus. I don't think that was the plan. I think it's after the goal is ruled out, they changed their mind there. But anything from the sub appearances, I mean, one of the really big talking points we had on the instant reaction and on the pre-match live stream is there's no room in the squad for Pepe. Now, Pepe's probably off. But if we sign someone in the next couple weeks, or God forbid 2 players, guys like El Neni, guys like Holding, guys like Sambi and Vieira, they're not going to make every match day squad. This bench didn't have room for Pepe. If Pepe was staying, maybe he gets in and Holding doesn't. But guys like Holding and El Neni and Sambi and Vieira, like they're going to be on the brink of not making Premier League match day squads. Like it is interesting how quickly we look a lot deeper. So any of the subs jump out at you in that respect?
Not so much the subs as that whole dynamic, because I think we've been watching the All or Nothings and we see a kind of almost a repeat element to what does the manager say to them before a game and at halftime. Mm-hmm. Where you really want to get to is a team that doesn't need a before the game or halftime speech on a very regular basis, because they're just competing to get in the team and to stay on it at halftime and to be the guy who doesn't come off at 70 minutes and to make the World Cup squad and their national team. And like the only time Arteta needs to come up with a new gimmick or a new speech is when you're in a bad run and in a tough spot. And, mostly these dressing rooms, I mean, Clive will tell me otherwise. He's actually been in some of these. I haven't been in any for a couple of decades. And we weren't very good in the dressing rooms I was in. And we were making it up as we went along.
I haven't even been alive a couple of decades, man. That age. Okay, go ahead, please.
So, Arteta may have exhausted his library, his notebook with great team talks. He's probably not going to need them for many of the games. Like you roll from this game to the next game. He just needs the team talk for when we've lost our way or we're not coming with our stuff, or to fuse everybody's thoughts together. And like the quality of subs off the bench, and then you're competing to get on the bench for each game, that I would imagine changes your training, everything at London Colony. Nobody can be sitting around feeling sorry for themselves because they're not playing. Otherwise, they won't be on the bench. And of course, that's a very difficult thing to manage. We've seen the sparks fly at Chelsea, at City in particular, with guys who should be playing for anybody else in the PL, getting the hump, throwing the Moody's, wanting to run off, nearly won the Champions League. won the Premier League 4 out of 5 years, and yet he's got 4 or 5 or 6 players who are always got the hump, want to leave, do something else. Those are the prices at the top end of the state of the league and world football. But there's a space in between where we were last year, where everybody was way too comfortable that they were in the team, and it was somebody else's problem that we weren't playing well, to what is going to be this year, if we can keep the bench stocked, the team stocked, the options in training right up there, where even if the team's not doing great, you better be on your game or you won't be in the squad, on the team, on the bench. I think it's a self-solving problem.
Yeah. I mean, I think we should leave it there. But the one thing I will say is after the match, Clive, Arteta said we're still looking for firepower. I mean,
Yeah.
it's there for us to just go get it right now. And there's no reason to sit with the hand, to just play the hand we have, because all it takes is one guy to be out and suddenly go, we're a little light, actually. I know it all feels great now, but Clive, I know you won't be mad if we go out and get another couple of signings.
Yeah, I've been doing my Sunday scouting today, and there's a couple of wingers that I'm sort of interested in. Obviously, everyone knows about that Jeremy Pino. I think he looks very positional play interesting, shall we say. And there's a guy that plays for Shakhtar Donetsk. I can't say his name.
Give it a go.
Mikhailo Mudryk. And the first time I saw him was Ukraine versus Scotland. He came on late in that game. He's a blonde winger from the left-hand side. And I could not...
Wait. That's a new position to me. Blonde winger.
Blonde winger.
Is that inverted? Or
from the left-hand side, and he was so quick and he moved across the screen. I'm thinking, oh my God, he plays with the intensity that would suit us. And much like sometimes you see a player, you love him in first instance. You forget about him because someone else comes along, like a Gakpo or somebody like that. And then he got linked to us in the last couple of days, and I thought, that would be a smart move. He's going to be the next Ukrainian superstar. We have a Ukrainian player in our team that's looking quite good. He just felt nice, and I do think there's a young winger we need to go and get that's got potential for me. I don't see as an experienced Fafana type. And it just allows us to have security at centre forward, security in wide areas, to allow us to play at the intensity we need to play at, that we've become accustomed to in the last 3 games. We're not having it no more. We're not having walkers anymore. We need joggers don't work. We need sprinters, hard workers, pressers, intensity, control our story. And if we don't have it, we're going to have the ump. So when we need to backfill, it has to be the same type of players that we have in our front 3 that we had yesterday. So, yeah, all good.
All good. Well, I'll tell you what's all good. The content schedule. We've got our first Academy pod for patrons coming up, and there's loads of Academy news to dig into, so you are not going to want to miss that. We have, of course, our instant reaction to the games that we're doing. We're doing our rewatches, and why would you not want to rewatch the sensation that is Arsenal at the moment? We will have scouting videos if there are any credible rumors coming up. We would love, love, love to have you with us over there, but if you can't or don't want to, we just love having you with us here through what is so far a wonderful season, and hopefully will continue to be something special. And with that, I'm going to say hi to Mike for a minute to tell you about a live event going on in London that you're going to want to be there for. He's got a lot of cool people signed up. I also want to tell you about the Football Content Awards. Those are going on right now. If you look at the pinned tweet at ArsenalVPodcast.com, at ArsenalVPodcast on Twitter, you go to Twitter, ArsenalVPodcast, the pinned tweet, you just copy it and paste it, and you voted for us. And it would mean the world if you did. We'll be talking about that a little more coming up as well. And then, or you can just go to the FCA Awards website and vote for us there. But the tweet one's easy. You can do it through Instagram too. You can do it through Facebook. Whatever place you're at, we would love to have you vote. Okay. Clive's on Twitter at ClivePFC. Thanks, Clive.
Thank you very much.
Paul's on Twitter at Pause My Pants. Thanks, Pause.
Saliba.
I'm going to throw it over to Mike, and we're going to talk about the live stream. Stay with us. I promise it's just a few minutes, and then we're going to be, the live event he's got coming up, just a few minutes, and then we'll wrap up. So Mike's coming up next.